Hi everyone, this is Arsenal Fan Circle once again. I want to say at the start we may experience some internet difficulties because, um, um, interesting enough, you know, what's the word I'm trying to say? Understandingly enough, everyone's on the internet right now, Rohan.
Yeah.
Everyone's on Netflix, Hulu, all of that stuff. Um, and a lot of people are working from home as well. You know.
Yeah.
But wanted to take a moment here. I think we've all seen on social media the uh, appreciation that everyone has worldwide for medical professionals. Those people who are going out and fighting this virus for us. So I wanted to take a moment and sort of do a kind of a round of applause. So we'll take like 10 or 15 seconds or round of applause for medical professionals. So I want to thank each and every one of you. And I know I speak for Tony and Rohan. If you want to say a few words.
Yeah, great job by the medical professionals. It's can't even imagine when we are told to be quarantined and we are inside the house, they literally have to go into, put their hand into the mouth of the lion, actually go and
Mhm.
treat patients who have this virus on them. And, it's a courageous job, and, they deserve all the appreciation, and they deserve all the credit. It's absolutely amazing what they're doing, and just puts things into perspective of how difficult their job is.
Yeah, and let's hope this what they're going through is going to be very very quick, and things will get back to normal, and
Mhm.
life will get back to what it was before, and what life was before for this channel, Tony, was Arsenal, and we have some more Arsenal related news today.
Arteta's birthday, Cesc Fabregas interview.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Happy
so
birthday, boss.
happy birthday to Mikel Arteta, 38 years old, and thankfully recovered from the coronavirus. He was one of the first people in the spotlight to actually have contracted, celebrity-wise, Rohan, the virus.
Yeah, and that's when the Premier League sort of took it seriously, right? Before that, there was still, I remember we had a podcast and it was a Thursday, and we
Two
still
weeks
weren't
ago.
sure whether
Yeah,
the game was going to happen on the Saturday. In fact, they had said that all games are going to go on as scheduled. And then,
45 minutes
Arteta
later.
news came. Arteta news came, and then Hudson Odoi news came, and then since then life has been different.
yeah, Tony. Hard to believe that was 2 weeks ago.
And it's hard to believe how it happened 45 minutes later, too, that Arsenal said Arteta had it. And the Premier League 45 minutes before said all the games are going to go on as normal.
I don't know about you two, but it really has felt like longer than 2 weeks for me.
Oh yeah.
We're worried about worldwide this virus, but happy birthday to Mikel Arteta, and sooner things get back to we get back to playing football, the better. But we got to first make sure society is free or relatively free of this virus. You know.
Yeah, definitely. But I have a funny thing that I want to share about this in the seriousness. So yesterday at around maybe noon, I was sitting here doing my work, doing my home office, and there's a stop sign right outside my house, and there was a parade that was happening. This was from one of the schools close by. The teachers were going around and they were honking, and people were supposed to come out and applaud. This was in respect to what is the NHS in the UK for the medical services and whoever's on the road, for them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that. And sometimes when somebody, stops at the stop sign and there's somebody behind that person, then they honk. And, you occasionally hear that. And it just went on going for like about a minute. And I was in a meeting. So I was about to open my window and yell out at them till until I got to know that this was actually a parade, and I had to go downstairs and start clapping for these guys.
Stomp your
Yeah,
hockey.
I actually saw something as well on social media. So you had Italy with the lovely music and people are singing from their balconies, and then you have in Spain they were doing something similar, something very nice and melodic. And in America, I think they were like, "Shut the fuck up!"
Exactly.
So
So that even in London, the NHS thing had happened, right? Like people came out and they were clapping and stuff. So it's the same thing. But yeah,
yeah.
I would have been one of those people. I was like, because I had to put it on mute and open my window about to yell at them.
So I want to say welcome into Glenn as well, and anyone else that's watching. I'm going to say this right now. We may have some connection issues. Like I said at the start of the podcast, everyone is on the internet right now. So, but we are going to talk today about some Arsenal news, and a lot of people follow Arseblog, and he had a very, very interesting interview with Cesc Fabregas. Your initial thoughts, Rohan?
I think it was an honest news, or an honest interview that he
Interview.
gave, and it put a lot of things into perspective about what happens behind the scene and where our team was at, and many things that we thought were true or untrue have been debunked there. I am
Yeah.
not really sure it's by itself how I feel about players coming out like 8-10 years later. if
Hmm.
if there was an issue, why don't you sort of come out then and make it clear to the public, and and you tarnish your image, you basically take the hit at that point, and then people are kept hanging. And so if you love the club so much, so there's that question of
Yeah.
why he didn't come out then.
Well,
But what he did
let's
say brought out many interesting points.
let's linger on that a second, Rohan. So we have the contrast between two players from that era. Robin van Persie, who had that open letter to the supporters and laid everything out. Did he do it in a better way, or what's the best time to actually talk? It's not exactly airing dirty laundry, but what's the best time to talk about these things? Cesc is getting close to the end of his career.
Right. See, it's. I think it's also about the respect that you have. So I think out of respect, a lot of people don't say it. But if you don't say it, then maybe you forever hold your peace. I don't know. I mean, it's
Yeah.
always interesting for us to hear that, but we want to hear it then, and want to know what's happening behind the scene, and where the blame is at, because we'll come to where the blame was supposed to be at, per my opinion, and what he has said. We'll get into those details. But the way Robin van Persie dealt with it, the fact that he was going to a direct rival, and the way he
Yeah.
was going, he had no connection with Manchester United, right? Like, so and then when he did go there, he was like, the child in my heart, 10-year-old, said that I should go to
Hmm.
United. I mean,
Hmm.
that just spoiled it. It didn't matter what he said before that. Then for Arsenal, he just ruined it. Then
Yeah.
with Fabregas, he was going to Barcelona, which was good, which was understandable.
Sure. Because
But if
he
he
had
would have
come
come
from
out,
there. He'd come full circle.
yeah.
Tony, so what's your overall feeling on that era? Cesc Fabregas, maybe some parts of the interview that you did read up on. Let me know what you think.
I think 10 years later is a little late to bring it up and rehash everything. He should have came out then and spoke about what he thought.
See, I kind of think that you do, okay, maybe you wait till the end of your career, and that's the time to do it. I don't know if it's the best thing, really, personally, to speak about it there and then, because then you open wounds up in the dressing room. You should try to keep everything probably in-house, in my opinion. Like Koscielny, last summer was a little bit messy, which led directly to us getting David Luiz. But for me, there's one very very vital part that I had underlined was like after the Champions League final, that team sort of broke up, and Cesc Fabregas had mentioned, how do you replace such players like Ashley Cole, Thierry Henry, Vieira, uh, Edu, all of those teams, all of those players were on hand. Very, very difficult to just slot new players in there and still have the same quality in the team.
Yeah, and you can't do that unless you spend the money, right? And we didn't have the money, so that was, it was, a double-edged sword for us. That football sort of just changed at that moment. I've touched on this before as well. That you know. Football also changed. It was a forward-looking thing of going to the Emirates, but that tied our hands, and
Yeah,
replacing these greats, uh, these are absolute greats. The Invincibles is a once in a lifetime uh,
yeah, we're starting to
achievement,
see
and
that.
you can't replace them. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we're starting to see that, and that's possibly why a lot of Arsenal fans can get salty, Tony. We have probably we're going to say we probably have experienced the best Arsenal teams we will ever see, and the teams that are going to come in the future will probably never come close. We may win titles, but the teams may never come close to what the Invincibles have done, Tony.
It's gonna be hard to find that team again and that quality of players from top to bottom.
Yeah, yeah. And in some ways, I thought it was very interesting to talk about Cesc tonight because he pretty much encapsulates the whole time, Rohan, when we were a great team when he arrived in 2003, and through no fault of his own, in my opinion, he left when the team was not in very very good shape.
well, it depends how you see it, right? Like, like he said in the interview, he would not have left if the team was doing well. He would not have left for another 2 3 years until Xavi
Hmm.
was sort of going out, etc. So, this is this point, right? Players who are playing today will say that I will not extend my contract because I want to be in the Champions League or I want to
See
win a
the
title.
ambition of the
How
club.
about you make
Yeah,
it happen? How about you make
yeah,
it happen?
yeah,
Why
yeah,
are you not the catalyst for all of this? And that's the thing for Fabregas as well. He came in as a 16, 17-year-old when he wouldn't get into the Barcelona team,
mm,
and Arsenal gave him those years, and I know that he's done really well. He's 19 goals and 20 assists or something. He had like crazy stats and
yeah.
wonderful player, and I do understand his ambitions, and I do understand that he wanted to go to Barcelona, but if his mind was set on going a couple of years later, it wouldn't have been if he supported Wenger when Wenger supported him.
Ryan, is it not a travesty to have a great talent like that and not build a team around that talent? And who is to blame for that? If you're going to portion blame, I'm looking at Arsene Wenger in those years.
No, I don't think so. You know that I'm a big supporter of Arsene Wenger, and I am very happy. This was one of my main takeaway points from this interview, where he said that Arsene Wenger doesn't have as much control as people think that he does. He said that in that interview. He said that
Yeah,
on transfers and
yeah,
on the money, he does
yeah,
not have as much control as, and that has debunked everything. That has debunked everything. Like I have said many a time before, Arsene Wenger is, or rather was, an employee. There was no reason for him to exercise so much power. So you can't place the blame on Arsene Wenger, right? Like,
yeah. Are you
of
talking
course
about?
you can.
Are you talking about Xavi Alonso and possibly going out and getting him, or what area are you
Just
talking about?
all over, right? Like, I mean, if he was not spending, why was he not spending? It's one reason could
Mm,
be that he's not been given the money. That is no fault of his. The second is that he was given the money, but he was not spending it. In that case also, it was the board's responsibility to step in and say that, no, I don't think what you're doing is right. So you either play with these players or you go out of the door. It's the owner's responsibility. Why is it Arsene Wenger's responsibility? He doesn't own the club. So and Xabi Alonso was just one example of how the club dealt with it. But he said overall, Arsene Wenger didn't have as much influence on transfers or didn't have as much control over the money as people think that he did. But he was always that shield to come in and protect the board, really.
Yeah, so from my point of view is Arsene Wenger was with Arsenal for 22 years, and we had an amazing 10 to 12 years. And at that point, the move was coming to go to the Emirates. Arsenal needed to make that move. Manchester United had big stadiums at that time, and we needed to keep pace with the big teams. Now, we're going to differ maybe in the next few years after 2006 in terms of what actually really happened. I just think Arsene Wenger acquiesced a little bit too much to the board, lost his Midas touch in terms of turning, small small transfers into big transfers, smaller players and turning them into world-class players. So I'm sort of just struggling with that a little bit. I understand what you're saying with the owner, Rohan, but
It is his responsibility as well. His responsibility was how we played, and when we didn't have the quality, we played too open and we played with that stubbornness, whereby we got one whacking a season. Every season we got either a Manchester United 8-2, or we got a Chelsea 6-0, or we
yeah,
got like a City 6-3, or we got Anfield. Something or the other was going on, and that is his fault. The way he set the team up, and then we'll sort of go into how he has been post games or during the games. That's also something that he's touched on. But since we are on the transfers bit, initially what worked for him also probably was that I don't know how good the scouting network for all teams were back in the
mhm,
90s. And by the mid 2000s, everybody had a very good
yeah,
scouting network.
I'd caught up.
you didn't
Yes,
you didn't have that edge of going and finding those players. You had to shell out money for them.
yeah,
Chelsea absolutely changed the game. And it was just a lot of unfortunate things happening at the same time. But Arsene Wenger didn't
yeah,
have that much control, so he shouldn't be the last
yeah.
person to be blamed. It's like saying
Um,
that they could put me in goal. It's not my fault that I'm there, right? Like I could. It's not my fault. It is the manager's fault that he has put me there, or the owner's fault who has
yeah.
let the manager put me there.
Okay, Tony, jump in. Down to where Rowan's speaking. But what do you think about what we've been talking about for the last 4 or 5 minutes?
I think everything snowballed at the time. We lost the Champions League final and building the Emirates, David Dean leaving, Stan Kroenke coming
What
in.
was it? Was it? Yeah, Tony, was it a perfect storm? All these things coming together, and Rohan is speaking perfect.
It was just a snowball effect and perfect storm, just so many different things at one time. Wasn't really,
Yeah.
you can't point to just one thing that happened.
So Stefan Harrington, get involved. Ask a question. They're talking about Cesc Fabregas and that interview that is thrown out. The difference between, say, an Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger was brought up very succinctly by Fabregas in that interview, in terms of said that he needed to push established players. He knew they were going to come back the next game and perform. And even at halftime, Wenger very rarely had to shout at anyone. And Cesc actually famously pointed out one time at Anfield, which I think we should try to. I'm going to try to verify which game that was. That would be interesting. But was Wenger's failing that he didn't use the hairdryer treatment so much
Uh,
with the younger
it's
players?
it, yeah. See, it depends on this hair dryer thing concept is also blown out of proportion a lot of times. I think, right? Like from what I have read from players who have spoken after their tenure at Manchester United, it wasn't that every game Sir Alex would go in and start yelling at them,
No, no.
and his thing also was that he knew to yell at and whom not, which is what Cesc also sort of pointed out with Wenger, right?
Yeah,
I famously remember that there was one example in a game where Nani was not playing well, and Sir Alex went up and he was shouting at Rooney and sort of explaining points to them, which was applicable to Nani because he knew that if he started shouting at him, then he would not even be able to go out for the second half. So that is an assessment that you have to make. Maybe the players, again, maybe the players were like that. He felt that if I start yelling at these guys, then then they're not going to be able to perform anyway because they were a couple of notches below the best. We know that in terms of quality as well.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
maybe he should have been more harsh. Maybe he should have thrown people under the bus. Maybe he should have come out and said that these people never, these people aren't following my instructions or something like that. But
yeah.
like Mourinho does. But he has not done that, and now it's being held against him.
Yeah, Wenger always
Yeah,
protected the youth, and that's why
Go ahead, Tony.
he got rid of Gallas as captain for getting onto the youth. Gallas was ripping him a new ass, and Wenger got pissed off and dropped him for 2 games and took his captaincy away for that.
Yeah. So Stefan says, cannot imagine Arsene being a hairdryer manager. I think he stayed a little too long, but certainly didn't deserve the crap he received at the end of his tenure. And of course, I agree with that. He was very willing. Maybe was he willing? Is that the wrong word, Rohan, to be front and center and take all of the flack in the last few years? But for me, this director of football thing was laughable as well a few years back.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was, his director of football, you don't need to give a title to someone, right? Director of football, David Dean was sort of the director of football for Arsenal. And then since then, there wasn't anyone who he trusted enough, or there could be many reasons behind it. I had given an analogy, right? Like maybe he was hanging on there because he knew that if he went, it's going to be worse times. It's like a mother not leaving the child with an alcoholic dad just to and
boy, did we have one alcoholic dad in Gazeta,
exactly.
Right?
and now he's the step brother. The dad is growing. He is the dad who is the alcoholic dad who's not interested in absentee dad, I would say. So that being the case, maybe that's why, and we've seen that, right? Like everybody was like, oh, fourth place trophy, what is a fourth place trophy? Arsenal, we are not satisfied with fourth, and now we're like dying to get to fourth, and every week the discussion is that how will we get to the Champions League spot. People were like, how much worse can we get? And it did get worse.
Yeah, Tony, kudos to Arsene Wenger. He was like a breath of fresh air. He pissed off Alex Ferguson at the time because all of the press really loved him. Cute analogy. So Rohan, I think that was the drunken dad, and had a great time. We were eating at the top table. We were winning Premier Leagues. We really should have won the middle one in between the Invincible year. I don't know. I still don't know how we didn't win that one. And maybe that's some food for thought for future podcasts. We can go into that season in depth. God knows how long we're going to have more to fill in terms of content and weeks. But yeah, amazing consistency, Tony, to be fourth place for 20 something
20.
seasons. And now we've just dropped down. And it's not that easy, like Rohan's saying, it's not that easy to get into the top four again.
And now
It's
everybody
not.
finger out. Just wasn't appreciative of everything that was going on.
Is that Hope's calling you?
No, it's my cousin.
It's and what's important is another big talking point from what he had said in the interview. Cesc Fabregas, he said that the team is much better now than it was in these middle years. With I'm sure he was alluding to the Shamak and the.
Did we all think
he
Shamak when
epitomized.
he said that, right? I was thinking Shamak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in those years, but we managed to play better and get better results than we do now. When we have technically a better team on paper, I would say, we have a better team than before, but somehow we're doing much worse.
Yeah, so Tony is actually friends with Stan Kroenke, and they're a close personal friend. Send all of your mail to P.O. Box Tony Turner. But that Stefan's comment. So why do you think Arsene Wenger and Alex Ferguson are such good friends now, Rohan? Because we were never rivals in the last 10 or 15 years, right?
Yeah, that's what we spoke about the last time, right? The issue was that Sir Alex, ruled the roost for so long, and then Arsene Wenger came along from like nobody, Arsene who, and started winning it with style, and trumping him. And he took offense to that, of course, and that is why there were those fiery moments, etc. But then he knew that it was over for Wenger, and then he started respecting him. Like respect was a form of disrespect, I would say,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it
Because
was that you're not at my level.
you're not at my level anymore. You're not going to fight with me for titles and things like that. But let's go full circle. We'll start at the start of. We'll come back to Cesc here. So my notes are: he arrived in Arsenal's heyday. He left when Arsenal was no longer a force. 212 appearances and 35 goals. 8 years with Arsenal. As a 15-year-old playing on Saturdays for Barca's team, I thought it was quite interesting. He would stick around and watch Iniesta and Java play afterwards. Rohan, I was like, he's older than him, maybe a few more than a couple of years, right?
Yeah, Xavi was, I think he was like 6, 7 years older
7 years
than
older.
Iniesta. Yeah, and Iniesta was maybe a couple of years older. So they were, anyways, they were better players than him. There's no doubting that, right? He admitted it himself. He wanted to go to Barcelona when Xavi was out because it's a form of saying that I couldn't compete with him. Right?
And he was even planning not planning, but he knew all the time that Xavi and Iniesta were going to be at Barca, that they would be first teamers well into their 30s. So he was actually planning his plan ideally would have been maybe 2014, 2015 to actually move to Barcelona. But later we would learn that he would actually move a few years earlier. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that he wanted to move, and it was interesting how he pointed out, right, that his interview, his call from Barcelona also happened when he didn't know that it was coming, but probably he got his head turned then,
Yeah,
at that point.
yeah. Because Tony, at that time, he had been scouted 40 times, Tony, and he actually had gone to Arsenal and seen London Coley at 16 years of age. So when he came back to Barcelona, they wanted him to re-sign, and he was ignoring those phone calls. So he actually goes on to say, Tony, he's not the type of person he wants to be upfront, but he wasn't that type of person to hide and not answer the phone call. He really wanted to answer those phone calls and tell them what was going on.
Yeah, I think he knew he was going to get more playing time at Arsenal, so he decided to stay with us.
At that time, Rohan, Arsenal was in their pomp. We were a big club, playing good football as well. And I think that's one of the attractions of Arsenal Football Club. We all laugh a little bit when Raul says the Arsenal knock is a little bit different to other clubs, but I think we can point to our famed style of play over the last certainly 25 years ago, maybe not the last 2 or 3 years, but it's something that Raul has been trying to speak about.
No, definitely. I mean, Arsenal is a brand, and that brand is because of a few things. Even if we weren't winning, one was the way that we played. We always played in a progressive way, in a positive way. We tried to play, even if we knew that we were a couple of levels below the other team, we still tried to compete, and we weren't trying to contain. And
Yeah.
maybe that was wrong in some instances, and we got slapped for that.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
that one was that playing style, and the second was the the class in which with which our club was run and how things were handled. The and that class also came from everything flew from Arsene Wenger, right? Because I did not follow the club before that. Of course, I was like quite young, so but from what I hear, we were boring Arsenal, playing
Yeah.
out one
Under
nils,
George Graham.
and then
Yeah.
correct, and then we changed our style all of a sudden, and then now he's gone, and we're back to the crap style. And earlier there was problems of alcoholism, of Tony Adams
Hmm.
said that and that Arsene Wenger increased his career by a couple of years. Steve Bold,
Yeah.
and
Maybe even more than a
uh,
couple of years because
yeah,
he
so
was in
all of
prison in
these
the
were
90s. Yeah.
correct, and all of these things are reasons why I have gone to continental Europe and like spoken to people there, and they have said that they support their team in their local league, in Germany, etc. But they said that in England we like Arsenal.
Yeah.
There's a reason behind
Yeah.
that.
And Tony, because of that style of play, we actually have our coach right now, Mikel Arteta, who saw Arsenal all through his playing career as the most similar style of play to Barcelona in England.
And I'd say at one point we're basically like a Barcelona B team with all the players that were leaving to go to play at Barcelona. I mean,
We're
I could,
actually like Barcelona North, Northern Europe, Barcelona, right?
yeah,
So in one
Yeah.
way, hopefully our future is bright because of the way we have played over those years under Arsene Wenger. Um, Arteta has gained experience under Wenger and now under Pep as well. So hopefully we can see the fruits of that. Um, so in those early years, did anything else struck out at you, Rohan? Just imagine a 15-year-old kid, um, first team training with the likes of Henry, Vieira, all those Arsenal greats, Bergkamp.
It must be, you can't even imagine. And that's where he also must have got his mentality from, right? It breeds
Yeah.
confidence, being with these guys, he gave that example example, right? That the day after there was a game with Manchester United, and Vieira went and tackled Lumberg,
Lundberg.
and everybody's training capacity or their focus went up by 80%.
Yeah,
And that is model professionals, right? Now, and then
yeah.
we had people like Bentner, who were known to be like the party people. He's going to tell you where the party spots are at, and we
So
could see
that's what
with the results.
I was thinking of Nicholas Bentner when he was talking about the players on the coach in the back, talking about what nightclub or what they're going to do. Maybe Johan Giroud, these kind of players who were just good players, but just were not didn't have that drive in them. And I think that's an internal thing, Rohan, in the makeup of every player.
Has to be. Has to be. It's a big
Yeah.
thing. A lot of people don't fulfill their talent because because they don't work as hard as the next guy, and you can't have that.
So Stefan actually calls out the movie Fever Pitch. So actually, I love that movie as well, Stefan. When you were a kid, you always remember going to Highbury. You actually support Ipswich Town, so big up to you. But Highbury certainly made an impression on you. So yeah, I mean that's the kind of club we are. And yeah, you mentioned that tackle, Rohan. When that happened, Lauren went over to Fabregas to teach this kid, look at that. This is what happens when you're not training, you're training shit and you need the intensity. And Vieira was probably not happy because we know from other documentaries, Rohan, that Vieira was preparing to go to Barcelona.
It was the same with Roy Keane on the other side, right? He would call
Yeah,
people out, and that's which was something that I said before Arteta came in. This was the Man City game, and I was watching it with the Gooners, and somebody we there was the question, who's coming in, who's coming in. And now I definitely support Arteta 100%, and there was all of he's actually won me over, but I was apprehensive about him coming in. And one of the things that I had was that he came in 2011, and he was here in our very bad phase for our club. And the whole time we were crying out that there are no leaders in the club. When he was there, now in a managerial position, he be that leader. Does he have it in them? In him?
yeah, yeah,
That's the question. But I hope that he proves everyone wrong. We all are
yeah,
backing him, but that's
yeah,
why I appreciate.
exactly. So I hope everyone's able to see it. The quality of the podcast might not be great because once again everybody's on the internet, so there's not that I
Oh,
can do about that. Hopes is messing with the wiring. Um, right. So yeah, he goes on to say that here's another thing that I wanted to touch on, Tony. Um, he said that Arsenal showed amazing faith in him as a young player, and I thought that was quite telling because if you don't show faith in those young players, what's going to happen? All those players are going to leave your club because he didn't see an opportunity to get into the Barcelona team. So his only option was to leave Barcelona. And if we don't do that with Arsenal, with Saka and Martinelli, we are doing that. But if we stop doing that, those players will not see a route to the first team. And I think it's so important to have that avenue for young players to stay at the club and not want to leave the club. Tony.
yeah, hopefully ended Saka during this break and been talking with him constantly and make sure we keep him behind the 12 months his contract runs.
Yeah, Rohan, that was a very, very key part of the interview for me. Arsene showed a lot of faith in Cesc Fabregas at that young age.
Yeah, definitely. So, that's what us apart from someone like uh, Chelsea or someone, right? Like, who's there great, who has come in, over the last, glory years, just John Terry, and now when being forced to put, but that's what sets Arsenal and Manchester United apart from these other clubs. Some, of course, trophies are important. These traditions are important as well, and people will say that no, it's only trophies. Trophies are probably the most important. We take pride on the fact, Manchester United fans take pride on the fact that, they've had the academy player in every match day squad since like, for the past like 40 odd years. And that is the same type of club that Arsenal are. That and it's not just enforced. We're doing it for years, decades, and that's the DNA of that class. That's because there was a purpose why these clubs were made, right? We forget about it because these are now machines, money machines, money operations. But we have to remember that there was a reason. They shouldn't lose that romanticism with football.
Yeah. The internet is playing a little bit of havoc or breaking. Right, Tony was breaking up a little bit, but
I didn't hear much of what he said that time.
so basically, Rohan, I didn't get. I think I didn't get what you were saying
Uh,
because we were breaking up. Fault here. Um,
Gremlins.
yeah. So everybody's on the internet right now.
yeah.
But Stefan said Arsenal have always had a touch of class about them. Um, all right, so let's move on. And right now, some things that we have seen, Tony, is that experienced players they understood that they've been educated by established players, and when it's their turn to help younger players, they will do that. And Fabregas is actually doing that right now at Monaco. I think it's a very very valuable thing, and to have that mix of youth and experience, which Arsenal has right now, is kind of a winning combination. I think.
Yeah, I think with people like Louise, nurse the players alone.
Yeah, and Rohan, like you were saying, the things that not sex,
Six.
the things that
Freud slip.
said about Arsene Wenger that he was very stable. Very, very true. But you can look at that as we touched on earlier in the podcast, in a good way, and you can look at it in a bad way. His stability is very good, so you don't have, um, you don't have a Mourinho wrecking your club as such, Rohan. So just speak to that for a second. Wenger's stability was it both good and bad?
It was. I would assume that what he did was that there were some of these super uh, talented and motivated guys who who didn't need any sort of motivation. The right treatment, the Vieras and the Henrys didn't need that. And then you have youngsters who maybe did not have the personality or the the exposure to handle that. And it's the personal and it's the style as well. You can't ask a person to change their style completely. He can't. He's that sort of person, and that had served us well for the first 10, 12 years. Why should it not serve us well later?
Yeah. I thought it was interesting as well. Wenger's technique. So the players would be out on the training field. He wouldn't really say anything to Fabregas until the end of the session. All of the players had dispersed, and then he was able to give him a couple of pointers as to what he could do better. And other times he would call him into his office and help him out that way. So I thought that was definitely a very, very good way of coaching.
No, definitely. I want to know, and it's something that I've thought about is that name any player except for Nabry now who has left Arsenal or Arsenal has let them go and has done better than what they did for Arsenal.
Van Persie.
But Van Persie scored more goals in the season when he was at Arsenal,
Yeah.
statistically.
Well, but what do you measure better in terms of trophies or better
No,
in
no,
terms of
that's
personal achievements?
trophies are team. Right now, we're talking about his coaching ability, right? So, a coaching ability is supposed to be an individual as attribute.
Yeah.
So it's an individual attribute. Trophies are a group attribute. So uh, I have seen many of our players who have left Arsenal. Cesc Fabregas included. Barcelona, he may say that he has played a lot, say that he has been in this final and that final, but he was not essential to Barcelona like in the way that Iniesta was, Messi was, you know. And the same way, Robin van Persie has great, but other than that, are there players? I'm trying to think. Ash Cole was just as good for Arsenal. He was better for Arsenal.
Yeah, Gnabry is the only one I can think of that improved after he left Arsenal.
Yeah,
Everybody else did.
That's a good example, Nabry. Yeah.
Yeah,
But did Tony Pulis improve him?
I didn't hear you.
Didn't Tony Pulis improve him, not Arsene Wenger? That was a joke.
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so there, people think that they will get better, etc. There are examples of people that Sir Alex has let go of, and they have become a lot better. Or Mourinho, we know, or any other. But I struggle to think of players who Arsene Wenger has let go of, and they've actually become better players than what they were under him.
Yeah, not too many. And do you think that's because of the stat-based analysis, Rohan?
That was, just his coaching ability, maybe, and his faith in players. Like he said, he said a very important thing that Arsene Wenger didn't want to recruit players who would run. He wanted technical players who had that ability. You can teach a person who has potential. If somebody doesn't have a potential, you can't teach that person. So he got people who had potential, and he got the out of them. Not collectively as a group, but individuals.
Yeah, so Stefan agrees with you. It's true. Very few players improve after leaving the Arsenal, or should I say, leaving Arsene Wenger. Right. So I thought it was interesting as well that Cesc talks about the many, many times that we were so close to winning the big trophies, Champions League final, and then a few times after that we had a couple of title challenges in 2008, and then even the league final in 2011. Very, very close in a number of occasions, Ryan.
So close here so far. It's the race to the Champions League that we lost, and then keep on our back, and then we drew it up. So we've seen some tough years.
Yeah, I'm just shaking my head not because of the internet connection, which is bad, but because of you just flash. What do you flash back to when you think of the 2006 Champions League final? That moment in the 12th minute when Jens Lehmann gets sent off. That's what I think of.
That's exactly like I said. We were better than them. 11 versus 11, and even 10 versus their second goal was an offside, and we just ran out of legs.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder when we will ever get back there, Tony.
Who knows under this leadership and the board and
Um,
dinosaurs in the board and start being
yeah.
more progressive.
So, Rohan, Xavi Alonso, he would have that interview was very, very revealing with about Xavi Alonso, a player who was absolutely willing, wanted not willing, more than willing. He wanted to come to Arsenal. He was texting Cesc all through the summer, not texting Cesc, texting Cesc all through the summer.
And so, how many players, as said, that just most signed? How many players have Arsenal? I saw an almost signed 11. Somebody made that, and it was probably the best team in the world. It was later than Galactico. So, you know, more than Xabi Alonso, though, I feel that what was important for Arsenal and changed the course of Arsenal was Cristiano Ronaldo. I think, who had also come to the training and we didn't sign him.
So Rohan, in that time when we didn't get Xavi Alonso and we didn't excel in the transfer market in landing targets such as, I mean, Cesc did absolutely everything he could to get Xavi Alonso there. He said he went to the right people. He talked to the right people. Can you put your finger on who we should point the finger at? Was it Gazidis?
I don't think was there that he's talking about it, but it has to be the owners. It is the owners, and they take the call. They take the final. I mean, I don't think there was enough clarity to say that it was Wenger call to take him, or I don't know cause. And for me, it's always the head of the organization who has to take the blame.
Yeah. Wenger was very, very adamant that he wasn't leaving.
Where'd Rohan go?
What's that?
So where'd Rohan go?
Rohan, I don't know. The internet's been playing havoc with us, so we're gonna get out of here in about 7 or 8 minutes and call it a day. But we just wanted to speak about the Cesc interview. So I thought it would be valuable to actually highlight this. So Rohan was just saying the Barcelona DNA and Cesc absolutely. I think we all understood in the end why he went to Barcelona.
We did
It
understand.
was something that he needed.
Yeah, it is something that he needed to do, he wanted to do, but maybe he could have waited a couple of years. But these are individuals and they are not, again, right? Like he can say that he had the best time of his life here, and a lot of these footballers, they try to make amends when their career is coming to an end, but we need to understand that they are not fans of the club, and ultimately they are professionals. They are in their profession. I think they get desensitized to all of this. As much as they would say that I love this team or that team, they get desensitized to this because they're so much into it.
I remember somebody actually interviewing a professional footballer, and they said, "Listen, you have to understand it's a profession. You're going to do a job. You may have an affinity with the fans at certain clubs, and you may love the club at certain times, but you have to treat it like it's a job."
Mm-hmm. If
And
someone really, if someone really is, is that club through and through. An example is someone like Paul Scholes, right? Because he never had an agent. He never had an agent. He would directly speak to the club. Whatever they would present to him, he would just sign it. And like he pointed out, right? He was what, a 15-year-old with an agent. He was,
Yeah,
he said that 10-year-olds have
have
agents.
an agent
So
these
for
days.
them,
Yeah.
it's just desensitizing this whole situation.
So let's apply what happened to Cesc Fabregas over 10 years ago, right now, 9 or 10 years ago, to present day. And we know that it is a profession for these players. Um, so what's going to happen with Aubameyang? I know there's been news lately that maybe they want to have us keep Ceballos and pay us a little bit of cash as well for Aubameyang services.
No selling Aubameyang. You know my stance on this. I think that we need to keep him. We need to pay him the Ozil sort of money. We need to move Ozil on, take some of his wages, but move him on. And Aubameyang has tangible end product. He's not just a luxury player, and he is the guy who will take us to the next level. Again, uh, what did Seth say? That you end up selling all of these players. Henry leaves, and then Vieira leaves, and then everyone leaves from that team, and then you're nothing. And he is, in my opinion, the only world class player that we have, and we have to build a team around him.
We have to build a team around them, but I'm going to say, like Seth said, if a player wants to leave, they will find a way to leave, come hell or high water. And are we approaching the same situation with Aubameyang, who probably ideally wants to go to Real Madrid, but it looks like Barcelona are the only ones, and Manchester United are the only two teams right now that are interested. Um, what's your reading of the situation?
See, a person who wants to go will go, but we need to make that decision as hard for that person in a positive way as
Yeah,
possible. That's
yeah,
the only thing that we can do, right? But
yeah,
we need to try our best. That is what I'm saying.
right. Um, I would you like to see Son at Arsenal, Tony?
No,
I don't think so either. Is that
See,
is
I
that a
don't.
strong rumor,
not that I've heard of.
Rohan?
Who at Arsenal?
Son,
Sonaldo.
Sonaldo, I would love him at Arsenal. Why not? Like, he is their best player. Take him. And I really like, apart from the fact that he has a poor taste in teams that he plays for. He's a great player. Why not take him? But with this Aubameyang thing, I'll tell you, with the Cesc situation, what I don't want is 5-7 years later to read or to hear in a podcast that it was $20,000 for which we sold him. He should come out and say that Arsenal did everything that they could, but I just wanted to go. That will give me some peace.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult to know if Arsenal are going to pay the money that he warrants, that he should be getting. Let's say, are we heading into another Ozil situation in terms of the cash that we're going to stump up to keep this player, or is it? I'm not asking, just throwing this out. I'm not really asking the question. Is it the right time for the club to cash in at this point in time? You know,
I think
and
we
that's
won't get again unless he signs a deal in the next few months.
yeah. I think realistically, Rohan, if he does not sign that deal in the next few months, if we get to 1 year away from his contract where he can leave on a Bosman, he will probably leave this summer.
Yeah, but I would like us to try till the last week of the transfer window before he
Yeah,
leaves. If he has to leave, like I
yeah,
said, we can't tie him up, but we need to do everything that we can. And spending the Ozil sort of cash on him would not be bad, would not be wrong. Like I had said before, if we were paying Sanchez the same amount of money that we were paying Ozil, that we are paying Ozil, and Sanchez performed in at that level, nobody would be talking about money.
The
You mean
Osprey again.
agents, agents and clubs? Do you think the current virus situation in the world and we're not playing football is accelerating the dialogue of transfers in the summertime?
Who knows? Like right now, it's
Certainly a
I
lot of
am
free
hope
time to talk, right?
I am hopeful that all of these Arsenal players who say that they are absolutely fit are getting onto video conferences and discussing strategies, and all of this is happening now. We are in 2020. You don't need to be face to face to be receiving instructions or to be strategizing or to be having
Yeah,
meetings. The whole world does it, and I hope that these guys come out with, of course, playing together as a team is different, but at least some improvement, and they don't go down in their level.
yeah. I certainly hope as well, Rohan, that we're going to hit the ground running whenever that happens. And we heard news that Mikel Arteta is coming up with all kinds of different programs, different ideas while he was out convalescing.
Mhm.
Um, any other observations from the Cesc thing? I think I started out a little bit critical of Arsene Wenger um, because he was the face, and maybe a lot of fans like me fall into the same trap. I think you sort of talked me around Rohan tonight in terms of Arsene Wenger may have been the visible face, but he may not have been the one who was ultimately responsible for what happened to our playing staff and poor recruitment since 2006.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think that it can be the blame of an employee that your organization is not doing well. And Arsene Wenger, I never thought that he had as much power as people think that he had, because how could he? There are stock prices. It's a business, and they can't allow 100% authority to someone who has no claim in that.
And Wenger himself said he wanted to tell the truth, but he couldn't tell the truth at the time and would tell us later what was really going on.
Well, he was he was allowed. Put us a bit here. Next 30.
I got none of that.
I know. And I'm losing
Okay.
my train of thought multiple times. Here's the thing with Arsene Wenger, and respect what he did first 12 years, but for the last 10 years, lost him. He didn't make it easy for himself, Rohan. He would make
Yeah.
continual, and as the years went on, and it went closer to his exit, and I still have a lot of respect for the man, but he would give us man one you would just be scratching your head about. He talked about having to pay employees. He talked about being a director. What's a director of football? Help me.
See, I think that he has. I often used to think, because for rival fans it was an easy target, and for Arsenal fans he was the most wanted man, right? Like and I often thought that if I had the chance, and if I could, if I had one opportunity in terms of football, I would want to go to him and I would want to ask him, what is the reality? You tell me your perspective of it, because he's never said his perspective of it, right? He's just held the party line and he has been the face. The AGM also, he used to conduct the AGM. Why was he conducting the AGM? Like, he's not a shareholder. He's not,
Yeah.
he used to do everything, right from, the kit man to the first team. Everything was run by him. How much will this person do? And that again, that blame has to go above him. And we've got to know that from Cesk's interview.
He was in the fire and light. Tony. Tony, he was definitely made the scapegoat of a lot of things on a lot of occasions. He was made the scapegoat for a lot of things. Tony, how do you balance out this period that encapsulated most of Cesk's career from 2006, and it's probably become more of a podcast about Wenger than it has become about Cesc. But
This is some mushroom trip going on.
I think we might have the audience ever for this podcast in the coming days. People are going to tune out after the 10th minute.
Drug.
No, I have a joke.
Go ahead,
I
Ryan.
have I have a joke to lighten this mood here as well, and which is, so Fabregas said that,
Quickly.
yeah, quickly. So Fabregas said that Barcelona were calling him and he wasn't answering their calls when he was visiting Arsenal, right? And then he waited for Arsenal to call back when he was moving from Barcelona, and Arsenal did not call back. So it's Cesc, and I was not picking up the phone for Barcelona because I didn't want to face that. In brackets I've written young snake, and 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 also Cesc,
Yeah.
Arsenal did not call me back in 3 hours. They could have called me back.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't touch on that, but I want to shout out Noe. Thanks for joining us, Noe. We're having a terrible podcast here. Thanks very much. Uh, not due to any one of us three, but due to internet connections, and everyone is on the internet, understandably enough. So shout out to Noe and Stefan. Yeah, Rohan, we wanted to. I guess we missed all of that. The option to take uh, Cesc back in 2013. What do you think about that? What would you have done?
I So was that the year that we had signed Ozil?
Oh, yeah,
That was the
yeah,
year that I had signed. I was more enthused by the Ozil signing, if I'm honest. I remember going out. I was on a vacation with a friend of mine, and he was also on that vacation, and he's a Chelsea fan, right? And he and I were, I clearly like remember now in third person, I can see that conversation happening. And I was like, Cesc Fabregas is too old. He's leaving Barcelona because he's not good enough, and we've got the better player, because Ronaldo was upset when he left. And then it turned out to be that Ozil pretty much hasn't really worked out for us, and Cesc did quite well for Chelsea.
Yeah. Let's get into no. He has a joke, and then I'll get back to that, Rohan. Liverpool fans are finally going to win the Premier League after 30 years. Coronavirus. Allow me to introduce myself.
Hold my beer.
Oh my
Oh,
God!
he's
What a bad
secretly
year.
staying.
Yeah. So I really wanted Arsenal to take the option on Cesc Fabregas coming back. Tony, no, why not?
I thought there were just better players available, and it seemed like he's already past his prime at a young age.
He had just gone to Barcelona for 2 seasons and won quite a few trophies. He was a very decent player at that time, I think. And what age would he be? He's 31 now, maybe, or
It's 33.
What age was he? He's 33 now, so that would have been 7 years ago. He would have been 26. You know, age thinking that he was going to go to Barcelona. He would have come back to us at 26. And I think it would have been real in the team structure, Rohan, to play both players.
I don't know if we were going to spend that much money, right? We spent.
Yeah, we spent 42 million on Ozil.
Correct, exactly. So
Well,
on top of that, we going to spend another 30 million on a midfielder? And between Ozil and Fabregas, not taking hindsight into consideration, at that point, I think we were more excited by the Ozil signing than Chelsea fans were with the Fabregas signing.
Of course, because Ozil was right. It was a final day. It was a coup, right? We got Ozil out of the blue, probably with hours to spare at the end of that transfer window. Do you think hindsight is 2020? Yes. Do you think that Fabregas and Ozil would have complemented each other in midfield?
Yeah, sure. Fabregas Fabregas could have played in that role, but I think we had Santi, right? In that role we had Santi.
Um,
So
yeah, Santi.
And Rosicky, too.
Did he come that year, Tony? I know he was prominent in later years, but he probably did come
Yeah,
later.
Sandy and Rosicky were both there at the time.
So, just your summary then of the whole interview, Rohan, and we'll get out of here.
I think it was an interesting interview, an honest interview, eye-opening about what levels we were at when Fabregas came in, and then where we dropped and where we are at now. It debunked a very big myth for me, which I was a believer in. So, like for me, it's fine, but for the larger audience as well, that Arsene Wenger didn't have as much control, and he wasn't, you know, he had his flaws. I'm not saying that he was the greatest manager in the world. He should have stepped down after the Hull thing, the Hull victory, FA Cup, and we should have got Klopp or Guardiola. But keeping all of that aside, he has also spent his prime years here, and so that debunked that. Uh, it just talked about levels, and it was a reality bite of where we were at and where we are at now.
Yeah, Tony, your summary about the Cesc Fabregas years.
I kind of, with Rohan, I think Wenger got too much blame with what was going on, and I really don't know what was going on behind closed doors.
And when he brings his book out, we're going to find out a lot of things, Rohan. That is going to be. I think I would really want to buy that book because a lot of fans, their whole life, a big part of their life, I mean, 20 years, 22 years, has been Arsene Wenger as coach of Arsenal.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. But I don't think that even his book is going to have so many, mind-blowing secrets. He's not the guy who will kiss and tell, right? It's
we very much hope he will do that, though, right?
Yeah,
Because
we hope that, but that will be very much unlike him. That,
yeah,
oh, guys don't know, Gazidis was a prick and Kroenke is an asshole. Like, he's not going to write that, right? Like, we
no,
all know that. He assumes that we all know that. So,
He's too
maybe
much of a
so
gentleman.
maybe he will say all of that in really really nice words. That
yeah, in French.
um,
La prick.
yeah, look for it. Um, I started out this podcast, and I probably still believe this a little bit, Rohan, that um, despite you talking me around about Arsene Wenger, uh, Cesc Fabregas was an amazing talent, and to only win an FA Cup in his career was a little bit of a waste in his Arsenal time. Wasn't his fault, all of it. Uh, he talked about where he would try so hard. He had that responsibility as captain, and I really believed him in that part of that interview that he'd go home absolutely shattered and crying about the situation, Rohan. And there's certain players in the back of the bus who were not feeling the same way as him. So that's we can maybe chart the change in temperature from the winning mentality in that tackle that Vieira put in on Lundberg all the way through to Koscielny leaving last summer.
Yeah, yeah, it's like that. But then you also have someone like a Stevie G, right? Who did not win the Premier League ever,
Yeah, yeah,
but he stuck around.
yeah,
And we don't expect that of Cesc because he's not from North London. He's not an Arsenal fan. He, as much as he poses to be, he's not. He's a Barcelona guy.
yeah, yeah. That's
That's
true.
the reality of it.
I think we've often said this on this podcast, Tony, that that those days are gone where you have a John Terry or a Tony Adams that are going to be staying at their club. And actually, Cesc mentioned Totti as well from Roma, who, if that's the type of player you want to be a legend of one club, then that was fine for Francesco Totti to do that, Tony.
Yeah, I think those days are gone. I don't see anybody staying around at one club and playing for 15 years anymore.
Well and truly done.
Yeah.
We're gonna finish the podcast with uh, give us two of your favorite Cesc Fabregas goals in his career.
So he said that in his interview as well. One has to be the one
Tottenham.
against Tottenham, where he just where he
Walk right through them.
walked right through them. There was one, and one is a funny goal. It wasn't as funny the result of it at that point, but I remember there was one game in which the keeper tried to clear it, and he put his foot in between. It looped over the keeper. It hit him, looped over the keeper, and went in. But that broke his foot,
Yeah,
and he ended
yeah,
up with a broken foot. So that's a
yeah.
memory of Cesc Fabregas that I have.
And he actually broke his leg as well when he took that penalty against Barcelona for a 2-2. You know,
Correct.
Tony, I'm going to give you the last word because I'm going to mention my two goals, and then I agree with you, Rohan. That goal against Tottenham, after it was 42 minutes, and Van Persie had just scored a goal. They go back and kick off, and literally seconds later, because the pitcher's only cut back, we didn't even see the tip off. The pitcher's cut back, and 2 seconds later, he's finishing that shot into the goal. And then the other goal I liked was the one in the San Siro against AC Milan. So a really, really long shot again. Tony, your two goals?
I really only one I can think of is the Tottenham goal. I really can't think of any other ones besides that.
He also scored a fantastic free kick, two late goals. I think we were struggling. He came on very, very late in the game, He wasn't fit, very, very fit, and he scored 2 late goals, I think, against Aston Villa. But that was the Cesc Fabregas interview. No, I believe in Arteta. If Stan Kroenke can back him up and stop being cheap, he can achieve incredible things. And I think Rohan this summer is going to be very, very telling for me with the club's ambition.
It's and but he mentioned, right, we have been spending the money. We have better players now than we did about 7-8 years ago,
Yeah,
but we are
what I
doing
meant,
worse. So
yeah,
smart investment, uh, quality investment, keeping hold of players who are world class. This is what will take us forward.
yeah. Um, we're going to find out what happens with Aubameyang. This has been an interesting podcast. Not
Drove
without
you
incident, right? Not without incident, Rohan. Yeah, we touched on Cesc a lot. Happy birthday to Mikel Arteta, the boss. We're glad that you're better, and I hope everyone out there is safe, right, Rohan?
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
That's the most
Everybody being
important thing.
safe. Yeah, but
Be
get
safe.
off the internet a little bit so that we can run our
Yeah,
podcast a little better.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. All you kids get off the internet so podcasts can run. For all we wanted was 80 minutes, right?
And
Yeah,
Netflix
exactly.
is at the throttle like they are in Europe at half speed.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a Cesc Fabregas podcast, but you wouldn't know it because we touched on Arsene Wenger a little bit. And Rohan, you changed my mind a little bit, so thanks for that. It's
Sure.
healthy, all healthy debate, you know. Tony, any final words?
I know, just not really.
Be safe out there, everyone. That's a great way to end it. Not really.
Not really. Good one.
Oh, good one, Tony. Hey, stay safe out there. I will leave it there. Come on, you Gooners, up the Arsenal. We'll try to cobble something together on Sunday for another podcast. Hopefully, the connection's a little bit better. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I apologize. We all apologize for the internet connection out of our control. See you Sunday. We're out of here. It's all Hope's fault and the Predator. Oh, that was interesting.